We would like to welcome everyone to the Nicholas County Board of Education meeting, regular meeting January 17th. And at this time, if we'll please stand for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you very much. At this time, would you join the board for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have any questions on the approval of the minutes for January 3rd and January 10th? Anything? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the meetings held on January 3rd and January 10th, 2023?
So moved.
Dr. Penix makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Green seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, discussion item number 4. Discussion on the RIF transfer.
Yes, so we're getting ready to come up on what every county across the state is going to go on. It's known as personnel season. Or RIF transfer, this way. Let's go the wrong way.
Excuse me, can you tilt that a little bit more toward the board?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just grab us in the pool. Oh, there you go.
I think that's as far as it's going to go. Might want to move the podium out of the way also. Pull it back. I just pushed it up there so I can see. Yeah, well, I wasn't going to do that because I'm not going to be the one to bring it. So, RIF, you often hear school employees talking about getting RIFed. And really what RIF stands for, it's a legal term of art called reduction in force. And what that really means is termination. Now, a lot of times employees will use that term generically for this time of year. If they get transferred out of one position into another, they say, oh, I got a RIF letter. That's not entirely correct. So employees are either RIFed, meaning they're terminated, or their contract is non-renewed, or they are transferred. There are several codes and policies that govern this process. It's very detailed and very complex, and I'm going to try to just give you the nuts and bolts of it this evening. But as you can see, from 3130.01 down to 4141, those are NCBOE policies, and then of course policy 5000 is WVDE policy, and also then these West Virginia code sections. And also what governs this, of course, are decisions by the West Virginia Public Employee Grievance Board and also the West Virginia Supreme Court. This has been litigated, this whole process has been litigated numerous times, and so the rules are pretty solid and pretty laid out. So now in West Virginia we divide school employees into two groups. You have service employees and you have professional employees. And for whatever reason we have different rules for one set over another. So I'm going to talk briefly about the transfer rules for RIF and transfer rules for service people. Again, this is just nuts and bolts. I could give you a 3-day seminar on RIF transfer process, but I won't do that to you or anybody else because nobody else would find that fascinating but me, probably. So all employees are entitled to what's known as due process, right? So they have to be notified in writing. Code is very specific. There's been grievance board in West Virginia, Supreme Court decisions about it. That has to be certified letter, return receipt requested, on or by April 1st, there was actually a case, and I believe was either went to the grievance board or it went to the Supreme Court, and I'm thinking it went to the Supreme Court, where an employee was given a letter, it wasn't mailed, certified letter, return receipt requested, but she had a hearing, she came to a hearing, participated in a hearing, and then grieved it for lack of notice, and she won because the court said the statute says certified letter, return receipt requested, or she didn't get notice. So that's very specific. They're also entitled to an explanations of the reason for their transfer or their termination. They also have an opportunity for a hearing before the full board. So as we go through this process, when we get ready to bring these transfers and reductions to you, some employees may request a hearing before you. There's no rhyme or reason to it. We've had very few hearings since I've been here, 1 or 2, and sometimes they just get in a mood where you will have 3 or 4 employees will ask for hearings, and we have some years where we don't have any. And also the board must take action on the preferred transfer or termination on or before May 1st. Now, this is kind of an interesting rule here. Any actions has to be by the majority of the full membership of the board. So there's 5 of you. So before any action can be approved, there has to be 3 votes, even if one of you would happen to be absent or have to recuse themselves for whatever reason. It's still going to require 3 votes to take this action. Now, kind of how we put this into process. So the first thing we do is we ID the position that's going to be eliminated, and I'll discuss how we get to that in a few moments. So if the employee in that position to be eliminated is the least senior employee, then we provide them that notice, the certified letter, return receipt requested by April 1st, that their contract will be terminated. If that employee is not the least senior employee, then what we have to do is place that employee on transfer, give them that notice, and then we have to go find the seniority in the same classification with less seniority and either place that employee on transfer or termination, depending on whether or not there's another position that they can hold. And also then we have to check for what's berry bump issues. In professional, which I'll talk about in a minute, professional people bump other people, like in elementary schools. If we eliminate an elementary school position and there's a teacher with less seniority in the building that's in a classroom position, somebody can actually bump somebody out of the position. The only time this happens for service personnel is when you talk about their contract length. So this is a very rare thing, but we have had this issue come up. So we have employees, service employees who have 200-day contracts. They have 205-day contracts, 215, 240, up to 261. So for instance, if we had a cabinet maker at Dixie Elementary, and I'm going to use generic things at schools that no longer exist so we don't freak people out. So if we had cabinet makers at Dixie Elementary and you decided that you needed to eliminate a cabinet maker at Dixie Elementary, and the cabinet maker at Dixie Elementary for whatever reason had a 240-day contract. Well, if the least senior cabinet maker at Canvas Grade School has a 200-day contract, but you've got another one that has less seniority than the Dixie cabinet maker at, say, Beaver Grade School, but he's got a 220-day contract, that 240-day employee gets to bump the 220-day employee. And then the 220 employee, then you got to find a place for them. So it can get complicated, and then when you deal with multi-classifications, it gets even more complicated, and I won't even go into that because it would take me a couple hours to explain that.
Mrs. Atkins?
Yes.
Just a second on that, on professional. So if you have a person, the position you've identified that you're going to, that's going to be eliminated, okay? Let's say it's at
You want to use Dixie?
Dixie Elementary, let's say it's a language arts position. We're on professional now. So that person could bump within the building if there's somebody with less seniority with the same certification,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And then that person would go out into either the RIF, or they would go out and bump somebody else in the system who has the same certification but with the least amount of seniority.
Yes, that is
Is that
correct.
correct?
That is correct. And I'll get all to that. And
Sorry.
really, you can have, you know, when you eliminate one position, you can move. I think the most I've had to move because of one position that we eliminated was about 5 people. So to eliminate one position, you disrupt 5, sometimes 5, 6, 7 employees. It just depends. So kind of back to the service thing, if no least senior employee exists in that classification, then if your cabinet maker was ever a switchboard operator, then I gotta go find the least senior switchboard operator and put them in that position and go through that whole process. For every employee that is moved, they have to get this letter and we have to go through this whole process. And then, because we don't transfer, the only time we transfer service employees into positions are with those berry bump issues when we're talking about contract days. Normally, the vast majority of them, what we're going to do is we're going to post the positions that have been vacated by less senior employees. And the transferred employee, terminated employees are considered automatic applicants for those positions in every position until they're hired into a position. Because it's based for service, it's based solely on seniority. If they've got 12 years of service and there are people who have less seniority, they are entitled to a position. They're not entitled to work in a particular school or even in a particular classification, but they are entitled to a position. So once we post those positions, then those are filled based on seniority. So that means people who weren't terminated or transferred can bid on those positions. So we'll have a bunch of shuffling around between now and when school starts. If there is no position, if the person ends up without a position because there's nobody with less seniority than them, then they're placed on what's called the preferred recall list. So that then if we would create, say, another cabinet maker position, then that person who's on the preferred recall list for cabinet makers gets first dibs on a job if nobody with more seniority bids on them. And then we have to notify the employee of the board action. Again, certified mail, return receipt requested.
So if they decline a job, decline a position, they're the most or the next one in line, and they say, oh, I don't want that job, where does that put them on the list?
Well, they still have their seniority, so they're taking a risk. We've never had that happen because typically what people do is they'll take the position because they know that stuff's going to continue to shuffle. And typically they're not where they don't want to be for very long, particularly if they've got a lot of seniority. I hate this process. I often tell people I think it's unnecessarily disruptive to other people's lives. It's convoluted, it's complex, which is part of the reason why you need, legal counsel to do this and why lots of counties are going to in-house counsels for this, because this is a bear and it's a beast, and I hate it. If I were queen for the day, I would change these rules, but I'm not. So this is what we have to follow. Now, let's talk about professional. Professional is a little bit different. RIF transfer decisions are based on qualifications, which is seniority, qualifications like their certification, their degree level, particularly in elementary schools, and their past evaluations. Again, employees are entitled to the same due process, notified in writing by certified letter, return receipt requested on or by April 1st, an explanation of the reasons for their transfer or termination, an opportunity to be heard before the board action, majority vote of the full membership on or by May 1st. So, again, what we do here is we ID the position that's going to be eliminated. We don't eliminate people, we eliminate positions. So we go through analysis, and I'll get to that in a minute. We ID the position that's going to be eliminated. If that employee is the least qualified in the county, that means they don't have any seniority, there's nobody with worse evaluations or certification, then we notify them that their contract will be terminated following those due process rules. If the employee is not the least qualified, we provide notice of transfer under the due process rules. So if that employee will be bumped, so we go find somebody, and he made this, Dr. Penix gave us an example. You had somebody at Dixie Elementary who was bumped somebody in that building, then that person goes out and you either issue them a transfer letter or a termination letter, as the case may be. You got to do that. You got to place them into the appropriate position by May 1st. So we don't post and fill those positions. We actually place those people in those positions. So the board meeting before May 1st, I'll come with a staff realignment, and you guys will vote on that. Then any vacancies that we have, we'll post and fill those internally, giving NCBOE employees first dibs on those. And then, again, if they don't qualify for another position, they end up on the preferred recall list. And again, notify the employee of the board action, certified mail, return, receipt requested. So now, you might be thinking, well, so why cut personnel? Everybody thinks that there's lots of places to cut waste, and there are places to cut waste, but education is labor intensive. We can't automate, we can't put robots in classrooms to teach, right? We've kind of been through COVID. It was bad enough sending them home. We've got to have people. So as a result, personnel costs are 82% of our total budget. So that's pretty significant. So if you're going to make cuts, when you have a reduction in your budget, your first logical place to go to is personnel. For the 22-23 school year, we budgeted over $26 million for personnel. So now, how much to cut? So then that's the other thing. We got to determine how much to cut. So here's kind of the factors that we look at. We look at enrollment. We look at our state aid funding. We look at grant and other funding and overall budget trends and concerns. So last year our enrollment increased by 31 students, which is really good news. That meant that our state aid increased by approximately $170,000. However, grant and other funding decreased approximately $670,000. This is round 2 COVID funds that have expired. So when COVID was going on, we kept our cuts very minimal because kids had been, we wanted to keep class sizes as small as possible in the hopes that we could recover some of the learning loss. So we funded those positions that we would have cut with COVID money. So now those round 2 COVID funds are expiring. Next year, COVID round 3 funds will expire. And so this number is going to get even uglier next year. But, so if you look at that, then we think the total cuts recommended would be about $500,000. You take the 670 of the COVID funds that are expiring, subtract the 170 from it, the increase in state aid funding we're getting, and so that puts you at a total cuts recommended at about $500,000. Now, and how we calculate that when we go through and look at it, and I'm just beginning this process, a professional position in the past, we've calculated that at about a total cost of $63,000. That includes their insurance and whatnot, and service position at $37,000. I think Kevin's working on these numbers because state employees were just given a raise. This may go up slightly, but that's the number in the past that we've worked on. Now, so then what do we cut? So when we go look at what particular positions are we going to cut, here's our determining factors. We look at the projected enrollment. So that's what I'm going through now. I go through WEBIS and we matriculate everybody forward. So if I'm looking at Dixie Elementary, I'm looking at this year's first graders and I'm moving them all up to second grade and so forth all the way through. So we do that for every school. Gets a little trickier when you get to middle school and high school because they can go different places. But I think in the last couple of years, the last several years, we've done really good at estimating those numbers. We look at class size. We look at test scores of the school as a whole. So if you have, some schools have greater needs than others, so we try to take that into consideration. We look at teacher to student ratios, equity of resource allocation across the county. So we try to keep our student to teacher ratios as equal as we can, as possible. Sometimes that's just impossible because you have to have a body. So you got 7 people in a grade school or a smaller school. There's nothing we can do about that, but we try as much as possible to get those allocations across the county as equitable as possible. And also equality of responsibility among schools. This is among service personnel. So when we go look at service personnel, like for cooks or custodians, we look at meals cooked per hour, square footage cleaned, and that's how then we determine that we try to keep everybody even. And also the additional resources available. Some schools have, Save the Children or whatever, so we try to take that into consideration. And we also ask input from administrators. I'm going to be talking to the principals tomorrow, as a matter of fact, about some of these numbers. What we don't consider are individual salaries. So we don't look at a position and say, this person's making $70,000 a year and we just want to pay her $70,000 a year. We can fill this position with somebody who makes 40, so let's cut this person. Can't do that. That's against the law and we don't do that. Teaching principals. We have some principals in some smaller elementary schools that are considered teaching principals. When we are looking at student-teacher ratios and that sort of thing, we do not count them as teachers. So they do not affect that. And I know there was some concerns because if you look at how many were over the state aid formula, we're over the state aid formula about 34 positions. However, that's not what drives what we cut. What drives what we cut are those numbers that I showed you earlier. So we don't look at it and go, okay, we've got to cut 34 positions. We look at what we can fund and what we can't fund, and that's how we make that determination. So somebody being labeled as a teacher principal won't skew that one way or another. So when, like when we brought enrollment to you earlier in the year, I think back in September maybe, when we were looking at Panther Creek, when I did those teacher-student ratios, I did not include principals in that, and I don't do that when we do RIF transfer.
So, excuse me. So why are they listed as teaching principals? Because they're not teaching principals.
But they are. They are. They do fill in a lot. They do teach a lot. They cover planning and all that sort of thing. So they do teach.
But all principals do that.
Not to the extent that those that are in those smaller schools, because there's just not staff to cover things. They just don't have, they've got the bare minimum staff.
So I've asked Kevin this before though. What is the advantage to the board on classifying them as teaching principals?
Well, they'll have a pay cut if you reduce the teaching principal from that, and those individuals, those schools do not have full-time secretaries in them. They're in the classrooms a lot. I do have, for example, Tammy Martin. She taught a grade for almost a year at her school, and so we do have that. And and it will reduce their pay if teaching principal does make a little bit more than just a regular principal. And it really will just hurt those principals that are classified. Financially, it will hurt those principals.
And may discourage people from taking principalships at smaller schools further. So they do have teaching duties. We just don't, when we're doing RIF transfer stuff, we don't take that into consideration because it's not ideal to have a principal teaching a class.
But if the board wants us in moving forward to make them principals instead of teaching principals, that's something that the board can, direct us to do, and I'll be happy to do that. But
I don't, as long as it's not against the teacher-student.
Right, no.
Teacher ratio.
Right. We absolutely don't consider, we absolutely do not consider that.
Because that's
Right.
3.5.
Right, yeah.
But we did not change it, like I said, because of the money.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And performance issues. So a lot of people, there's a misunderstanding we have teachers and, well, every employee, when they're first hired, has what we call probationary contract. Now, in the real world, and I can say that because I come from the real world, when you're on a probationary contract, that means the employer can walk in at any time and say, you know what, this is just not working out, you don't come to work tomorrow. That's not what it means for school employees. So what happens when counties try to use the RIF transfer process to kind of weed out substandard employees instead of jumping through the hoops of improvement plans and that sort of thing, is that person ends up on your preferred recall list. So you're going to have them back anyway. So it's not an efficient way to deal with employees who aren't making the grade, so to speak. So that's kind of the process there. If anybody's got any questions or anything.
Kind of going back to that last point you had there, do evaluations affect that in any way?
The evaluation, so a part of the big ed reform that they had a couple of years ago, if a teacher has had unsatisfactory evaluations for I believe it's 2 years in a row, then we have to release them before we release someone with good evaluations. But it has to be a totally unsatisfactory evaluation.
And Mr. Prine kept us on our toes.
Based on the comps that you get from the state, how many professional service are we over at this time?
Well, we're over, based on those comps, we're over 34 positions professional. And, oh gosh, I checked the service and I'm thinking 27. But we have some positions that are paid for with grant funding. They're paid for with federal funds.
Excess levy funds?
Excess levy funds. So we just don't go, oh, we're 34 positions over, so we have to cut 34 people. We go back and we do that budget analysis. What was our state aid reduced last year? What other concerns do we have? What are our tax collections going to be? That's what we look at because, you know, it's challenging. We have 14 schools that we have to staff. And that's where the challenge is going to come in because, I mean, our enrollment did tick up just a little bit, but I don't know that that's going to be a continuous thing, and I think we're probably projected to continue to lose enrollment. And so sometimes these are tough decisions, and you know what some counties do is they kick the can down the road. Marion County, for instance, they haven't ripped or transferred anybody, terminated anybody, and I don't know how long. And now they're in the hole. They're $3 million in the hole, and now they've got a mess. So it's one of those things that as long as you know, we've been very diligent every year to go through and make responsible cuts. We try to make them responsibly and with the best interest of the students in mind. And you know, sometimes they're tough decisions, but we try to do right by students.
In this 34 professional and 27 service, are there employees in there that are being funded by the CARES? Or is that additional employees that maybe have to do?
Some of those aides are, some of those.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and those are round 3 COVID funds that are going to expire next year. We have like 13 aides that are paid for that unless the state picks it up. I know last year there was a bill before the legislature that would have funded those permanently. It didn't pass. I'm hoping it passes this year because I think those have been extremely beneficial. If not, then, you know, next year's going to be difficult.
Brutal.
Yeah, yeah.
And some of the counselors that were under special funding too.
I don't think so.
They were
That's
under
part of our
COVID?
state.
It's our state aid.
Oh,
We
okay,
get
they
state
can-
aid for that.
Okay,
Those-
and they'll keep that.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we need, our kids are, I mean, we had 3 expulsion hearings today. And we've had, I don't know how many we've had this year. You know, yeah, 18 this year, and that's unprecedented. Our kids are a mess. Being home for COVID was not good for them. I mean, I'm glad I wasn't in the position that had to make that call down in Charleston. It was a tough one, but our kids suffered. Whether it was right or wrong, that's for somebody else to say, but our kids suffered. And you had kids who were in substandard homes or abusive homes who school employees didn't have their eyes on, and those weren't getting reported, to CPS. And then you just have students who have been sheltered, particularly younger students who have no clue how to come into a school and behave and participate in the school process. I think eliminating social workers and counselors would be detrimental to our ability to educate students, because if you have students out of control, you're not educating anybody.
We had on average 13 expulsions a year up until last year. Last year was 43, and we're up to 18 this year. So we're having a little difficulties.
And it's not just us, it's
Across the state.
across the
Across the
country.
nation.
Across the nation.
Any other questions? So what about February? You're gonna recommend RIFs and transfers?
Well, the first thing I gotta do, I'm going through the process now, and so when I go through and I get enrollment, then, and even the central office will sit down and talk about things. I rely heavily on Sarah Lee and Lydia Young, because I'm not an educator, so I'll often go say, okay, can we do this? And they either tell me whether it's feasible or it's not, and we have a lot of internal discussions. We have a lot of discussions with principals. So I hope to put the letters out about mid-February, 1st of March. And then, so it'd have to be before April 1st. So whatever that board meeting is, your last board meeting in March is when we'll bring them before the board, or April, I'm sorry. Because the letters have to go out April 1st, by April 1st, but you have to vote on it on or by May 1st. So that last board meeting there in April. The 18th.
April 18th.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, enrollment update, Mr. Hanshaw.
Put a couple documents in your file folder. One's an Excel sheet that I handed out earlier this year. That actually was pretty close. The state did adjust us up this year because they don't send me the adjustments. I submit what I have on October, and then they send Kevin, this is what we're going to pay you for. So they adjusted us up from when I submitted, like 17 students. So that's good. This is the first preliminary submission that Kevin has. I'm going to try to figure out where they added those. My guess is there are students that probably transferred out but wasn't transferred in anywhere, and so they let us claim them. They was just kind of in unassigned pool, is my guess.
We're not gonna give them back.
But we ain't giving them back because, but I also submitted, there was 2 documents. One was a PDF that was, it's called, gosh, I forget what I named it.
October 1 comparison.
Enrollment.
What is it?
October 1 comparison.
There's comparisons that is the, probably enrollment.
It's
The PDF is enrollment and the comparison is Excel. It's 2 different documents. But you can look and see what we got paid for last year and what we should be getting paid for this year. But you can also see what other counties, you can do comparisons to like counties and things of that nature too. So as you can see, this year we're up 30.67 students, and I know it's kind of funny that we have 0.67 of a student, but it's depend on hours served. So, which $5,800 a student, that's $177,892 approximately. That's how much money we should increase by the state aid. So, like I said, we come in at 3471 this year. For total FTE.
Yeah, it shows 3488. We gained a couple more, did we? Maybe I'm not reading it. 60.
It actually,
That was 60.
3468, maybe. I'll go to the end there.
With the adjustment.
with the adjustment, you can see they adjust us over, it's 3471.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Small print.
Chris, on the October 1 comparison, on the second sheet, which says sheet number 2, the second set of numbers, 1 October 22. We have 34, total enrollment of 3454.125.
Yeah, that's what I submitted. I said they adjusted us up 17 students from that.
Correct, so that's the number that went up 17 students from that to the, and in comparison to the 21 enrollments, 3440.46, we were up 14 kids from that, from last year.
We're up 30 kids from last year.
Wow.
After you go by the adjustment.
But they gave us 17 kids.
Right, they added 17 kids to those, because that was what I submitted. The numbers you're looking at is what I submitted, or what was present in Weavis on October the 1st. So when they go look over, they go through all these checks and they compare us and they look at students and see if they was enrolled in more than one county or where they should be, and sometimes they take away and sometimes they add 2, but this year we're fortunate that they didn't take away, they added 2.
Any questions for Mr. Henshaw? Thank you, sir. Okay, just under discussion items, C, discussion on the superintendent's goals as related to school performance, student outcomes, and our academics with board goals and actions to improve student achievement and well-being.
Give you a snapshot. For the first two, we're doing the county and secondary comparisons from the first snapshot to current. Then when I get over to both of the high schools, I will have all 3 snapshots of where we are so that you can actually see how gains and losses. So the first is math, and you will see that we have 34 students, K through 5, above grade level on the first snapshot. Today's we have 117. So, you know, that's quite a bit of growth. And then on grade level, we had 424. Now we have 661. We had 453 below grade level. Now we have, it's been reduced to 301. We had 226 students far below grade level, first snapshot. Current, we are down to 107. 288 students not pinpointed, and our first snapshot down to 242. So this is all of our elementary schools. So they're growing. They're definitely showing improvements. For the ELA, our first snapshot showed 77 students above grade level, and to now we have 194. We had 318 on grade level, now we have 493. We had 390 below grade level, now we're down to 352, And we had 339 far below grade level that's been reduced to 198. And we had 301 not pinpointed, that's been reduced to 191. So great gains for our elementary across the county. Secondary, we had our first snapshot. We had mathematics. We had 4 students above grade level. And we're up to 6 students above grade level. Then we had, for on grade, we had 43. We are up to 78. Below grade level, we were at 120 in the yellow. And we have that, we are at 139 now for below grade level. Far below grade level, we have 1,265, the orange. That is now reduced to 974. And we had 412 students not pinpointed. We have 637 not pinpointed. We're struggling with our secondary ed.
Is that not pinpointed? Is that kind of?
It's where they have to do their assessments. They have to do their assessments so long every week, and then when you show growth.
If they have to be absent when that happens or occurs, then they're not pinpointed.
To be honest with you, I think Candy is going to explain that to you.
Okay.
Because she did a little bit of digging, and so she wanted to get to the bottom of it, and I cannot explain it as well as she does. She does an excellent job.
Okay.
So I'll wait and reserve that for her, okay? For the ELA, we're doing much, much better in secondary ed. Our first snapshot, we had 103, now we have 121. We had 130 on grade level in our first snapshot in the green, and now we have 121. We had 192 below grade level, that's in our yellow, and we are at 160. We had 927 far below, that's the orange, to 801 far below. We had 492 not pinpointed, now we have 631. So I'm going to ask Nicholas County High School, I'm going to go ahead and go through the rest of these and then I'll have her to come present. You're going to see 3 snapshots here. This is where I think it's important for you to see the growth. So snapshot number 1, it's showing for mathematics, it's showing 0 above grade level. For before, second snapshot, and third snapshot. For on grade, we have 1 student on grade, which is in the green. And the second snapshot, we increased to 6 students, and the third snapshot, we increased to 6. We had 10 students below grade in the yellow, and we went to 19 in the second snapshot, and we went to 19 on the third snapshot. Far below grade level, we were at 519, that's the orange. We went to 602 on the second snapshot, and we've reduced it to 466 on the third snapshot. And then not pinpointed, we were at 180. First snapshot, second one we were at 83, and the third one we were at 219. Our English Language Arts for Nicholas County High School, we had 48 students above grade level. And the second snapshot, we had 68. And the third snapshot, we had 63. And then on grade, we had 62, which is the lighter green. And the second snapshot, we went to 70. And the third snapshot, we went back to 58. And then below grade level, we had 93 on the first snapshot. That's the yellow. And then we went to 83. We've decreased it to 83. And then the third snapshot, we've decreased it on down to 73. The far below grade level is at 358. that's in the orange. Second snapshot went to 404, third snapshot went to 285. And then not pinpointed, we went from 149 to 85 to 231. Ridgewood High School, we went from 0 students above grade level. To the second snapshot, we have 1 student above grade level, and the third snapshot, we have 1 student. On grade, first snapshot, we had 0 students on grade level for mathematics. Second snapshot, we had 0 students on grade for mathematics. The third snapshot, we have 2 students on grade. Below grade, first snapshot, we had 1 student, which is in our yellow. In our second snapshot, we had 7. And then in our third snapshot, we have 4. Far below grade, we had 223 in the orange. Second snapshot went to 278. Grade improvements on the third snapshot, it's down to 66. And then for not pinpointed, it went from 110 to 48 to 261. And then for the English Language Arts, they had 7 students in the green as being above grade level in the first snapshot. Second snapshot went to 5. And currently, we're at 1 student above grade level. Then on grade, we went from 16 students in the lighter green to 20 students in the lighter green to now 8 students in the lighter green for on grade. Below grade, we had 23 yellow. We had 25 for second snapshot to 11 for the third snapshot. We had 130 in the orange as being far below. We had 227 on the second snapshot as far below, but it's been reduced to 78 for the third snapshot. And then we went from 158 not pinpointed to 57 not pinpointed to 236 not pinpointed. So I think it's important for you to see each of these areas prior to the principals presenting in their 3 to 5 minutes, so that if you have questions that you want to ask them, you'll have the opportunity to do so. So if you, Mrs. Rapp, if you're ready, and she can explain. I'll pull up yours if you want here, or you've got a PowerPoint, don't you? Okay.
That's probably different than yours, but,
This was pulled, what day did you pull yours?
mine, I have totally different.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Do you want me to start from here, or do you want me to talk about? We'll get it. So I'll start with my presentation. I'll hit in with what she was talking about, and then take your questions. So monitoring process at school. We use Plan Book for lesson plans, and this is the first year we've done that. And it's very nice because everything's there, everybody's is alike. They can pull the standards in, and it's just in a nice format. You can see what's going on. The walkthroughs, since we currently have no walkthrough common app for everybody, I've been using Plan Book. You can make comments to the teachers, and it's kind of nice to have those lesson plans there with what they plan. Is that what's going on? You can kind of coordinate it and make comments, they can make comments back to me as well. So I've liked that this year. And observations, I do per WVDE guidelines, depending on what the teachers, how long they've been teaching. All right, Chris, you might have to help me here. Not want the slide one. Attendance. Did I miss one? No. Our attendance has been going up this year compared to last year, which I covered in LSIC last week. Since we turned the daily automated phone calls home, that really helps at secondary level because our kids drive, they can skip, they can get off the bus, get picked up by somebody else, but if that phone call goes home, usually that parent will call back and say, well, they were there. No, they weren't. So that helps us a lot. And we'll probably be starting the rewards up soon. We did last year for perfect attendance from one week to the other, and they had gift cards. And once again, our age kids like those gift cards. But, so, I mean, we dipped a little bit there in the 4th month, but we had a little, there's some flu bugs rolling around and holidays, so sometimes they take a couple extra holidays. Our performance, we do have collab classes for our special ed kids and those that need additional assistance, maybe that aren't in special ed. We have 2 math and 2 English collabs per grade level for these kids. We do have 2 small ELA and math classes for those group of kids, maybe between collab and self-inclusion. And we do have teachers that are certified in special ed and math and special ed and English, which really benefits the students. This year, 8th period, we put in flex time, which has greatly decreased the amount of Fs. When I ran the DF report at the end of the semester, it was very, very thin, and it's been a book, but it's a lot better this year. And most of the reason for those Fs you can attribute to attendance. Then our counselors, graduation coach and social worker do a tremendous job. I don't really know what we do without the graduation coach and the social worker. They provide a lot of benefit and hands-on that we sometimes don't have time to go the extra mile. And then the IXL for benchmarking. So if you can look, that's our skills practice at 50,505, proficient, and then mastered. So we've mastered not quite half of the skills that they practiced this year. And that's how much time they've spent on it. Some of them do work on it at home. Not a lot of time, but any little bit of time's a win for a high school kid. Our graduation rates, 4-year cohort was 95.62 and the 5-year at 94.01. I think we had 2 kids, maybe that didn't make it last year. Okay, that's it. So, IXL. I think it's kind of important to remember that it's a tool that's meant to enhance and not take the place of the standards. And I know they're supposed to be on it, once a week for 10 minutes, but it's really more like 15 questions. It could be more than 15 questions per kid. So at best, it's probably going to take 1 class period a week for them to do what they need to do in IXL. And I know our data's gloomy. We get that. And the not pinpointed caused us a lot of anxiety, a lot. So I just went straight to IXL and I said, tell me about this pinpointed. Why is our kids pinpointed? Now they're not pinpointed. It fluctuates. So they told me not being pinpointed is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. because that means there's movement. So the teachers can give them those questions, the 15 questions, and it pinpoints them. Then if they immediately assign the 2 tasks within their lower skills, and those kids start working on them, it immediately unpinpoints them. So I quit having a lot of anxiety about that pinpointed, because it just means there's movement. It doesn't mean anything bad, but they could be pinpointed right now, and then when they start working on those new tasks, they're immediately unpinpointed. And we had an extra session with IXL just for Nicholas County High School last Friday, and we went over that again. And they assured us not to worry about that pinpointed, that it was just showing movement. So, science and history, they were doing a lot of the IXL, but our kids were getting a lot of burnout because they do it English, history, math, and science. So we cut the science and the history back to once a month, and they're going to do it for extra bonus points. Math and ELA still staying hard at it. And the other thing about the growth, the below grade levels. So in our English, we talked about this Friday in our meeting, and IXL is going to try to put a presentation for us, which hopefully I can get back to you all then, or somebody can if it's not our turn. They show growth, like they might, some of the English, like reading and some of those levels were maybe 3rd and 4th grade. Now they may be 7th grade or 8th grade. They've grown, but they're still below grade level. So they're still showing, they're still dinging us on the grade level, but they've shown growth. So we've asked them, is there some way that we can show this in some kind of database or a chart or something to show growth, even though we're still not where we want to be, not where we need to be at all, but that we can see that they have improved, which would help the kids to see they have improved as well. Still not just showing below grade level.
That would be why we're seeing the larger.
See the bigger picture.
I'm
Yeah.
pinpointed, yeah. That would be,
But the pinpointed was driving me crazy.
yeah.
Do they know where they're being ranked? Are they aware of where they're being ranked on this? Which
kids-
category they're in?
Yeah, the kids, they know where they are in it. It's just, if they could see their growth over time, I think would be better. I tried to write down some stuff so I wouldn't forget something. Anything else you can think of you want to know?
You indicated that in, like, for example, math and science, that's every week they're in there, and that's requiring at least one period.
Math and English.
Math and English, I'm sorry. And so that would mean that that's one day of instruction a week that they're focused on something else.
Right.
Their instructional
And a
time.
lot of our teachers, they'll use it a little more, but they'll use it, like I know, probably you've heard of the game Kahoot. There's another one in here similar to that. And they'll try to pull that in sometimes for test prep or extra help, but
Yeah,
It's
I
a
know
lot.
just asked about the pinpointed. It went up to 3rd time it was checked. And what was the reason for that?
it's, if they go in and answer their questions per week, it'll pinpoint them to where they need to be. But the teacher then will assign 2 tasks on what they're having the most difficulty with. So when those kids start working on those tasks, it unpinpoints them.
So that when they start back in,
Yeah, they get down into the next week, they'll be pinpointed again, but it'll fluctuate a lot.
So is pinpointing skewing the data?
I don't know if it could be, I guess, it could be.
I mean, it's so large in some places, it just,
Right, but it's just showing them the movement of them. If it's pinpointed, they're working, they're doing something. And if a kid would miss a week, they miss the day that they're doing IXL, they're absent. So when they go back in the next week to catch up, then they have more questions. They have more than 15 questions. They're going to have more, which is going to take more time to complete. But sometimes that flex time is good for that. They can go back in to that teacher and finish up during flex time, so they don't have to bump into another class.
Does this, you're losing some time in regular state standards in the classes, aren't you, when you do that?
Some, yeah, some. I mean, we like it, as a school, we like it. It's just, sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. But it's, so far, we like it. It's consistent with the standards and what we need to work towards SAP.
I think it's what you said, it's a tool.
It's a tool.
A tool to help us out. I think our problem, it probably is understanding how to interpret it.
Right, and
And
that's been a struggle this year. Everybody was kind of in uncharted territory, and that's why I called. I said, you got to tell me about this pinpointing.
Well, I look forward to hearing more about that, because I think we need to understand that better. It sounds to me like, and I have to go back and look at one of those charts, that you have that large orange area, like maybe two.
Yeah, we're wanting to break that down and say, where did they start? Where are they now? Yeah, they're still below grade level, but how far have they come this year?
And now that we have 2 assessments in there, in the principal's portal, they can go student by student and see where they were and what their grade was and how many skills that each child has completed. They can drill it down to the individual student level.
So we need not to panic when we see those
Right,
large orange areas.
Right,
No,
right.
Okay.
It's not great, but it's not necessarily
as
as
long as
luminous
they're
as
aware
they
of it
did.
and they know what they're working on.
They can still be in the orange and still making improvement.
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's just really been good to bring principals in and let them have an opportunity to speak about the growth they're seeing or whatever issues, so that the board is not just surprised at the end of the year, oh, look at what the scores are. You guys are being made aware of the steps that our principals are taking as instructional leaders to help move our students to mastery.
I think it was quite an eye-opener the other night. Mrs. Rapp, when you presented, you talked about your SAT scores. And we look at that, and that's of value to kids when they take the SAT, because they can go to college, or they can do other things with it. When they take the GSA, which is the summative assessment for the state, it's just a one-time test, and there's not anything attached to it. And how serious a kid takes that test has consequence on the outcome of the results for the school. And based on your SAT scores, our kids are performing better than what we think as far as the the GSA goes.
And it's a lot easier to motivate elementary students to take that test
Yes,
than it
it
is middle school and high
It
school.
is, yes.
And they know too,
They
because
know.
they'll say, this doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
My own kids have said that.
I know.
Any more questions?
And as you find out more information, you can
I
share it,
will.
or
I'm
Dr. Lee can
anxious
share it with us.
I'm anxious to get a color chart on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Either one of you.
If it gets too cold for you, let me, and she's got the door back there, I'm gonna wait for it. Maybe it gets too cold for you.
Not good for it.
Okay.
I have.
Yes, exactly.
Good to go. All right, so again, with the same three areas in mind that you'd ask us to talk about. Principal presence in classrooms, as Candy said earlier, there's kind of three ways that we're in the classroom. There's the informal classroom visits that are made usually daily. Sometimes it may be every other day for certain teachers, but just this quick stop in, check in, see how you're doing. It's not really a formal thing. It's just a check in, be seen, see what the teacher needs, anything, move on. Then there's the longer walkthroughs that she uses Plan Book. I've been emailing teachers. I may start going to Plan Book. That's a good idea. But we're supposed to be coming up with a common, that should be ready soon, walkthrough app that we can use. It'll use forms as a document and automatically email the teachers the results. And that should be ready anytime. So we'll all be going to that here. And what I typically look for in that, the main one is we look for student engagement. You know, or is what percent of the students are engaged with the lesson. We look for objectives, posted student objectives, so the students can know what's going on, what they're supposed to learn that day. And then I always check for, with this year, we started locking all our exterior doors with some of the school safety things. So I always kind of know make sure and the teachers have been doing a great job with that as far as locking doors, just from a safety standpoint with pods. And so every door is an exterior door. Unlike, a school where hallway doors locked, unlocked, not as big a deal because you've still got that exterior door. We don't have that. So I always check for that. And then our 30-minute observation on teachers that are in the initial progression get 4 of those a year. And in the intermediate progression get 2 of those a year. And to kind of break that down, initial is teachers within their first, second, or third year. Intermediate is teachers in their 4th or 5th year. And then advanced progression is what they used to call in the old evaluation system being on free sale, there's no observation required unless we think that's needed. We just do the end of the year evaluation. So that's kind of the presence in the classroom part of things. Attendance, as she said, the automated daily phone calls we started doing again. We stopped, a lot of things went on pause as we know with COVID. That was one of them because so many people were missing that were virtual or whatever because they were quarantined. Sometimes a third or half the school was on quarantine. So we stopped those, we started doing those again, and they do a really good job. I think more so even with the high school students than elementary, because typically I think parents know that their elementary student got on the bus because they put them on the bus. A lot of high school students, parents leave, and it's kind of on the kid, hey, get on the bus. So sometimes, and then if the parent doesn't get home till 5 o'clock after the kids would be home, kids can kind of buffalo a parent and say, oh yeah, I went to school today. But that takes care of that. Or I drive and I went to school, and it tells them that they didn't. We do our 3-day letters and our 5-day letters. We send those out every week for students these are unexcused absences, 3 or 5 days. And that's kind of a prelude to the 10 unexcused absences where the truancy diversion specialist comes into play, and we start talking about truancy diversion contracts. If that doesn't work, we start talking about court proceedings. So, semester test exam exemptions, we did that again this year. That was another thing that went on pause with COVID. We brought back, that's kind of an incentive for students. If they have 5 or less absences, 40 blocks or less, which amounts to 5 days, they can, and are passing their classes with 75 or better, they can be exempt from semester exams. That's something a lot of students strive for. If they're kind of getting close towards the end of the semester, maybe a day they would have missed otherwise, they'll come to school. So all that being said and put together, our attendance as with Nichols County, and I think looking at the report that Tammy sends out for the entire county, has for the most part trended up this year over the last couple. Part of that's to be expected, obviously, due to less COVID absences, but a good thing nonetheless. Areas of low performance, this is how we compare with the state, and this is from the report card that the state puts out every year. On this, keep in mind red is bad. Yellow, red is does not meet standard. Yellow is partially meets standard. Green is meets standard, and blue is meets standard, and green is exceeds standard. So for ours, as you can tell, kind of in the colors, basically mirrors our areas of concern, really similar to the state's areas of concern. We're yellow in English ELA assessment achievement, so is the state. We're red in math achievement, so is the state. Ours is quite a bit lower than the state, so that is definitely an area that we've been trying to work on, is the math achievement. Attendance, they were both so terrible last year, I don't even want to get into it, but they're both areas of concern. We were 7% higher than the state, but still 36 is just a horrible number in that regard. To get to yellow there, you have to get that, it's either 50 or 60, and to meet the standard, it's 80. So these numbers are so far off that it's going to take a lot of work. I believe nearly every high school in the state was red in attendance, except for maybe some of the really small Pickens, Paw Paw type schools that only had a few kids. Graduation rate, we were green, exceeds standard for 95% for both for the 4 and the 5. That's a good thing. We only had a couple kids, like Kenny said, not graduate last year. And good news is a couple of those have actually, for the 5 year, they'll kick in because they've come back and finished what they were supposed to do and made it. So that's good. On target to graduate, we were in yellow, the state was red. 80's the number, so the state was almost yellow. And then post-secondary achievement, we were at 55, we were below the state, but still in the yellow. Post-secondary achievement is the number of kids that either complete a college class with a C or better or complete a vocational program.
Is that during the high school term?
That is during their high school career. That's based on the senior class of last year. So like post-secondary achievement, if you have 100 kids and 40 complete a VOTEC program and 20 pass a college class or better, that's 60. You're going to get 60% of those points.
Gotcha.
That's really small. Okay, so addressing areas of low performance. Math, we have math lab for freshmen. Our freshmen go to VOTEC for exploratory one semester. The other semester they have math lab. So they have a chance there to, work a little extra in that freshman math. We also keep our freshman classes really, we have an extra one of those compared to our other math classes so that we can try to get them with a smaller class, get them off on the right foot and get them started. A term that we learned kind of at the beginning of the year was just-in-time learning. The idea there is that students, you take the gaps and we try to catch those gaps up while still focusing on grade level learning. To go back and start from a kid that's in 3rd grade and say we're going to try to catch you up all the way, the problem is we may catch them up some, but they get no grade level learning. And then they go into the next grade, now completely behind that. So we're trying to catch them up while also focusing on the standards for that grade level. Again, collaborative teachers in there. And then for our upper level kids, we have, that are trying to get to those scores on the SAT. With Glenville State College, we have a college math class that they can take, those seniors, so that they can kind of improve on that. A lot of those same things are in place in ELA. And then post-secondary achievement, we've got the Glenville State College classes. The more of those we offer, the more kids will take them, and the more kids are likely to get a C or better in a college class. And then the other side of that is the vocational part, which I'm sure Tom will talk more about. But the exploratory program for freshmen, we try to get them out there, meet a teacher. Maybe they like that teacher, get along real well with them, and it makes them more likely to attend the vocational class. And then the other side is they actually added a couple programs out there this year, law and public safety and entrepreneurship. And then they added a couple more last year. So the more programs we have, the more things kids might be interested in, the more kids go there. That thus increases the post-secondary achievement score. IXL. There's kind of 2 ways that we use IXL. One is to address those gaps in learning, those red, orange kids that Dr. Teacher was talking about. And then the other is the grade level support. So we'll use the diagnostic plan, and then from that they kind of get a customized plan for what they need the standards they need to work on and the skills they need to work on. And then they'll work on those, again, working like Ms. Rapp said on the 2 lowest strands of that. And then the on grade level support is when the teacher, specifically that day, I'm a math teacher and I cover quadratics, and instead of maybe I cover it, face-to-face instruction, instead of a worksheet, I assign you some quadratics on Excel. So it's the same as doing the math and assigning some bookwork, except it's doing the math and assigning some Excel. So that's that on grade level support versus the gap support. And you can see, this is what a student sees in Excel, and the ones with the stars are the ones that are pinpointed. Okay, this was actually pulled today, and the ones with the bars, the long bars that don't have a star at the end, are not pinpointed. And as Ms. Rapp was talking about, the more the kids work in IXL, the less sure IXL becomes of what their level is. So, for example, today in this class, I was talking with the teacher. They worked on algebra and algebraic thinking in class. She assigned IXL. That would be this part over here, the skill base. She covered it and assigned it. So as the kid worked on it, IXL became less sure of where they were. Kind of to use an athletic comparison, if you're talking about free throw shooting and someone shoots 70%, but then they practice for 2 weeks straight, 2 hours a day shooting free throws, I'm now less sure that they shoot 70% because they've practiced and probably shown improvement. So then they go back to the diagnostic, take the diagnostic again, and we pinpoint again. Does that make sense? So this skill, they didn't work on fractions today. Fractions still a star, it's pinpointed. They didn't work on data, statistics, and probability. That's still a star, it's pinpointed. So this kid overall would show up as a gray, not pinpointed, because not all 5 areas in math are pinpointed, or 6 areas are pinpointed. That's not a bad thing. That means they're working. When we diagnose again, it will get them back to pinpointed. So what it's saying is that this student's range is somewhere between a 620 and a 710. We're not sure. IXL's not sure because they'll put in work.
Does the diagnosis occur when they have gotten to the end of the line there?
No, the diagnosis occurs. So the longer the line, the better the kid is in that skill. So we want all those lines to grow. So weekly, this Friday, when they do their weekly diagnostic, those 15 questions we talked about, and Ms. Rapp's right, it does take about, they say 15, 20 minutes. It usually takes closer to a class period to get all that done. When they diagnose again, those will all become stars. But as you can see here, they have recommended skills. As they click here and work on those recommended skills, when we talk about working on our 2 lowest strands, so this student would work on the 2 shortest are probably measurement and geometry. They would work in those 2 areas as their 2 lowest strands, and they have 4 recommended skills and 2. So they would work on those recommended skills, and as they do that, they become unpinpointed. This Friday, when they do their diagnostic, they'll pinpoint again, but then anytime they open this up and work on it, they are immediately, as soon as they start doing questions, going to unpinpoint.
Thank you.
So that kind of describes how that pinpointed process works. And then over here on the other side is just our school achievement in general, the hours that have spent and the questions that have been answered just by the school and the skills. So they've practiced almost 13,000 skills. Of those, almost 8,800 of them become proficient. That means they scored an 80. And then 6,900 of those they've mastered, meaning they got to 100 in that skill. And then as they do that, these bars grow. All of the bars go to 1,300 except for fractions and measurement. Measurement goes to 700, fraction goes to 800 because those kind of relate to grade levels. So an 800 grade level in fractions is as high as it goes because there are no high school standards for fractions. Measurement standards cut off the 7th grade, so it only goes to 700. So when you're seeing a fraction score of 490, that's saying that this kid still has some work to do to become fully proficient in fractions. But that's kind of, and the longer these bars go, the better off the more this student's progressing. And again, as Ms. Rapp was talking about, all those in red, and it's kind of goes back to when you say you can show growth in red. Actually, those are your kids that have the most potential to show growth. I'll talk about shooting basketball again. This is the old coach in me. If Mr. Moose shoots 90% and I shoot 50%, I've got a lot more room to grow than he does. I mean, 100 is most, he can only grow 10 points, and that's certainly hard to do to be perfect. I've got a lot more potential to show growth. But let's say the cutoff for red 70%, I could grow 15 points and still be shooting 65%. I'm still red, but I've grown a lot. So a lot of those red kids are growing, they're just not getting into the yellow and green color. So there's certainly growth to show.
Are all high school students required to take 4 math credits?
4 math classes, yes. They take, we do Math 1, Math 2, Math 3. Math 3 is a little bit, they can take Math 3 STEM, which is the STEM to science, technology, engineering, math component. Math 3 LA, which is this kind of the normal, what we would consider the middle. And then Math 3 TR is for those students that are math technical readiness. It kind of focuses more on the vocational side of math. And then they take Math 4 their senior year. They can, if they complete certain programs with Mr. Bayless, get embedded credit. So if I complete welding, I get an embedded Math 4, and I do not have to complete Math 4 as a separate class because I'm doing that math in the welding class or the carpentry class. Same thing with English. We do 4 English, but I can get English embedded in ProStart or nursing. So if I take nursing, I don't need that 12th grade English.
And they can take Math 3 and 4 as a junior, correct?
They usually take Math 3 as a junior. They're all year long. And in Math 4, there's some options at Math 4. They can actually take Math 4. They can also take the dual credit math through Glenville to fulfill that 4th math credit as well. So they can take college algebra, for example, and fulfill that credit. And just to say that in English, they can take English 101 and English 102 to fulfill their junior and senior English credits. That's where you get those kids that are college and career ready when that last over here post-secondary achievement. That's what we encourage those kids to do, because if they pass that with a C or better, then they count in the fold, so to speak, for the good side of post-secondary achievement score.
Is whether they're able to take those determined by their work in school or by the ACT?
It is. Glenville requires them to have a certain GPA, and they for some classes that, like for the English class, they require an ACT or an SAT score, or in the math class, they require for algebra, like for college algebra, they require a certain SAT or ACT score, but they will also, so what our kids did is first semester they took, I forget the name of it right off the top of my head, but like Math 108 is what they call it. And then Math 115 is college algebra, they're taking second semester. So if they took 108, Glenville waived the SAT score requirement so more kids could get in. They took 108, and if they got a C or better 108, they could go on and take 115. So they did that this year for most of them. There's some requirements. The biology course has an SAT requirement, but in some courses, we teach a government course, and we also teach a U.S. history course, and those don't have a requirement. So they have a GPA requirement, but not an SAT, ACT requirement.
How do your teachers feel like that the IXL program is serving them well?
They do. I would say for the most part, they like both parts of this. They would probably, given their opinion on it, assess less. And I think this is probably true for teachers at all grade levels across the board. Let's assess less and do some more of the skill-based, like I teach quadratics today and then I assign some work on quadratics today. I think they, from what I hear talking to them and talking to some of the students, they find more value in that and less in the snapshots. Because like I said, it takes a day pretty much, and a day a week, you're losing 20%. Not losing, but you're assessing essentially a day a week. And that probably gets a little old to them and a little bit old to the students, and the teachers feel like they can probably be more based with this part of the IXL, the skills practice. But as Katie said, it's a tool. It's not meant to replace instruction. It will never replace a teacher's instruction, but it's a tool, and I think the more we use it, the more we learn how to use it. Also, probably the more efficient we come, and maybe it doesn't take as long to get that assessment. maybe we can get that day down to 15 or 20 minutes.
Anything else from Mr. Williams? Thank you, sir.
Now, I purposely do not have a PowerPoint because I'm going to try to stay within the 2 to 3, 4 minute range here. I'm not saying anything about Mr. Williams, you know. I'll teach you how to tell time later. So we'll go over the 3 areas, the 3 questions you guys gave us, then we'll hit some Excel data really quick, then I'll leave you guys alone for the rest of the night. So the first one is how is our school addressing areas of low performance? Last week, I went over with you guys how we did on our NOCTI scores last year, and we were several points above the state and national average. But we still did have 3 areas that was pretty low in comparison to our school. So our welding program actually ended up 10 points below the state average. Next was our ag program, and they landed right at the state average. And then our ProStart program was 11 points above the state average. But those were still the 3 lowest areas we had in our building. So those teachers have dissected all that data. They found all over the week set and what questions the students were struggling the most with. And they're just kind of addressing those weekly to keep the kids, to make sure the kids are caught up. How our school is working to increase attendance rates. Last year we ended the year at a 91% attendance rate. And we tried a variety of different things such as games, competitions and stuff like that. Unfortunately, those things just didn't work for us. You know, the students who were participating the most in those activities were the students who had great attendance already. So it didn't really help us a whole lot. But what we did find to help us was if we could just create a culture where students felt valued and they wanted to come to school, that did help our attendance rate. And we really do that through 2 main ideas at our school. The first one is creating a workplace environment where students feel empowered to develop the technical and soft skills needed for the workplace. And the second way is to create authentic learning and assessments where students can see the connections between what they're learning, their content knowledge, and how that applies to a real world scenario. So that's been the biggest help for us in attendance. As far as frequency of the principal in classrooms, try to go in once a week, sometimes more, sometimes less. I've been trying to do a new thing where I go to a classroom and the kid teaches me a skill they're working on, whether it's ProStart or welding. It's not happening as much as I want it to be, but that's my goal. That's what I'm trying to do. And IXL data. I don't have a PowerPoint, but I do have some handouts for you. Now, we only use IXL in one program. That's our Project Lead the Way program. And because they do teach us standalone math with Project Lead the Way. So we'll compare our 9th, 10th, and 11th grade in that program to how we're doing in Project Lead the Way. So let's start with the 9th grade first here at the top. So you can see 9th grade we had 0 students on grade level in the county or our school. We had 0 students on level in both the county or our school or in that program. We had 5 out of 11 students were just below the grade level. So those 5 students took the math at the Tech Center. In 10th grade, we had 1 student above grade level, and that student did attend the Tech Center. On grade level in 10th grade, 5 students in the county was on level. 4 of them took the math at the Tech Center. And just below grade level, we had 4 students in the county at that area, and 1 of those students took the math or taking the math at the school. In 11th grade, we only have 3 students in 11th grade in that program. So 0 students were above grade level in the county. We had 3 students on level in the county, but unfortunately none of those students was taking the math with us. And then we had 1 out of the 4 students just below level taking the math for us. So the students who are taking math here in our program are doing pretty well. And I think it just kind of shows you if you start connecting your content knowledge and you can put it in a real world scenario, kids really like that. You know, they seem to learn better, less problems, better attendance, less discipline and stuff like that. I told you I could get done in 2 minutes.
4 minutes and 23
That
seconds.
was fine.
You said there about the culture that you're trying to create for these students. And I think that is to enhance them and make them feel a part of the program and bring them into a more working relationship with the educational process.
Right.
And that culture is extremely important, and particularly in this day and time. We need to have kids who are engaged hands-on with getting into the educational process and doing, being a part of programs that are, directing them to what they can do in life. And that we haven't been doing that a lot before.
Right.
And that's been a major problem, I think, for education for many years. I appreciate that culture, and I think that's exactly what we're trying to do in this comprehensive high school at Nicholas County High. And so I appreciate that. I think it's very important to, that we keep that focus going.
Thank you. Yeah, we try to preach that to our new teachers all the time. And at the beginning of every year, we preach culture before content. Let's look at culture, lay it in place first, and we can suck down in our content. And we see we go a lot farther if we do that.
When you excite students about learning.
Yeah, they want to be there. That makes a big difference.
What math do you offer?
Well, it's Math 1, it's Math 2, and Math 3 STEM right now.
If I'm not mistaken, your school did real well in the math field day program last year.
Yes, it did. I think we took 7 or 8 of the top 10 spots in the 9th grade program.
I believe you won it, didn't you?
I think the 9th graders maybe
Ninth grade.
won.
Ninth
yes.
grade.
It's good. Very good.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 5, action items. A, approval to place policy 8452-.02.
And we have Martha with us in case you have questions. That's the Narcan policy.
This is a policy, this draft came from the health department. So I guess this is a draft policy that many county boards are adopting. So this was a recommendation of our health department.
It said that could be administered by some staff, right? In an emergency if the nurse.
Yeah,
is
yeah,
not
we would do
available.
training with them.
How will the training be?
The state will provide a training for us to use with the staff. We already have aides, usually, sometimes secretaries, trained to give regular medication on a daily basis. So we would just do this as well with them.
Do they will they supply you with their pre-measured?
Yeah, we can get it from the University of Charleston's School of Pharmacy. Got some grant money that I can get from there. And I think our health department can distribute it now as well, so we can get it from
Their
either
syringes or?
Yeah, they're already prepackaged and they're universal doses for children and adults.
Once the board approves the policy.
Yeah,
they
we have to have
provide it
that
to us.
policy in place before I can get that. And they'll provide 2 doses for each school, or as many schools as we want. If we want to do just secondary, we can. If we want to do all of them, we can. And then I think the University of Charleston, they will also provide the storage boxes that we can put on the walls as well. I'm not sure about if
What's the expiration on that?
I'm not sure. They'll be labeled and then they'll replace them for us once they expire.
Okay.
Boxes on the walls?
Yeah, storage boxes. We have.
That'll be in your.
If we get it from the University of Charleston, I'm not sure if we get it from the health department, if they will include the boxes that we can place on the wall, like we have our AEDs, and then we already have EpiPens in the schools on the boxes as well.
Okay.
So we've had this for a few years.
Will it be kept in your office?
Most of them are kept in the main office of the school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Back to what President was asking a moment ago, you all do monitor those expiration dates on those, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, I just recently had to replace all of our EpiPens this year, so. So yeah, we'll monitor all of that, and then, like I said, they'll replace them for us when they expire, as long as the grant money, they said, is there. But then, when that runs out, I think our health department will be distributing it for a while, so.
Any questions?
Is that stuff's expensive? Has it come down in price any, or?
I don't think.
Of course, that may not affect us, I mean,
No, because we can get it
yeah,
at no cost.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, because right now I get the EpiPens at no cost as well,
Well, their price came way down too.
yeah.
Jumped up 600 or 700 then.
Thank you all. Approval of the contract with, that's Sarah Lee, right?
Yes, with Carnegie Science Center. Can you put the copy in your packet?
It is there.
This is a contract paid for with federal money for an experience for the students. Carnegie Science Center will bring their Science on the Road van for 2 days to work with elementary students. And we'll rotate the students through by grade level so that each of them can come to one of the sessions. It's a chemistry-based investigative session.
When I looked at this, I noticed it said total audience 800. We have, do you say elementary? We have more than 800 elementary students, don't we?
Yes. We'll have up to 250 in each session, and we're doing it as an incentive for students who have either met or gone beyond grade level with IXL, or ones that the principals have deemed have had an adequate growth that need to come along. And then they'll rotate through.
This will be done at,
We're going to use Old Main, and then the kids can shuffle in one door and see their session, and then shuffle out the other.
So you said it's used as an incentive? Were the kids, were they made aware that it was going to be available, you know, that they were working towards that?
Well, they didn't know what it was. They knew that they would be recognized in some way, but they did not know what it was, because we, of course, had some moving parts, and we had something else up front, and that wouldn't work out.
Because didn't you plan on skating or something?
Yes.
That was, okay,
Yeah, doing a
All right.
STEM day there,
right.
but we had some things come up that didn't work out, and then so we came up with something else that's still science related.
So they were aware that they could work towards this?
Yes, that something
Okay.
could happen. And then that same thing, that's why we have the provision in there that principals can deem additional students if they have adequate grade. Because like they were saying, there are some kids who may have started out really low. They've grown 100 points, which would be a year's worth in 4 months, but that they could still be included as well.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Oh,
Can we attend?
Sure, come on over.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, approval of the Nicholas County Schools participation in Growing STEM Teacher Collaborative project of the Appalachian Regional Commission, Marshall University, June Harless Center for Rural Education and Research and Development, West Virginia Department of Education, and the Southern Regional Education Board.
It's Melissa, isn't it?
No, you emailed it to me, next week, put it on here.
No. Throw me under the bus. That's just a renewal that they had asked. That's the STEM Collaborative. Don't have my initials beside of it this time, so that's mine. Just one second.
It's on the line.
Yeah, let me pull it up here. If you have questions. There it is. Yeah, we were asked by SREB if we would be willing to write a letter of support for this initiative. And they actually gave me the, I found it, but yeah, they actually gave me the criteria in supporting the, STEM programs in our schools. And so I'm just bringing it to the board to ask for permission before I sign it. Which it doesn't cost any money. I think technically I could have just signed it, but I just wanted to make the board aware.
Any questions?
Is that in the primary grades or all the grades?
When I put this on, I have to go back. I'll
Middle
be
school and
honest.
high school, it says.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept action items A, B, and C as presented?
So moved.
I think yes, so moved.
Okay, so Dr. Penix and Mr. Barrett. Any questions? I thought you had a comment, I'm sorry.
No, just.
Any comments, questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Brings us to finance. Mr. Hess, we were going to let you go first today, but you were late.
Well, I had to pay a few more bills, so I thought I would try to get those in. We do have the last couple last minute invoices to pay, if you want to review those real quick.
Just pay the bills.
Always gonna have everybody's got one. So the first item is to approve payment of current invoices if you have any questions.
How many dozen eggs did you buy at Walmart there for $15?
One. That's enough.
It wouldn't be funny.
So one thing I think the public needs to know, the transportation new truck that we purchased,
Yes.
90% of that is reimbursed by the state, correct?
On this truck, yes, because it's for transportation.
Okay.
And yes, 90% of that will be reimbursed by the state.
Over a 2-year period or something?
Pardon?
It takes about 2 years, something like that?
It takes about 2 years to be reimbursed for that, yes.
Is that a utility, for utility or?
It'll have a utility bed on it. Any other questions on payment of current invoices? Next item,
Guitar Center?
Guitar Center.
We have guitar.
We have ukuleles.
Yes, we do.
Okay. All right.
We have strings.
Payments and, or I'm sorry, supplements and transfers. We had the Nicholas County Community Foundation awarded some grants to Summersville, Richwood Middle School, Birch River, Glade Creek, for a total of $8,511.58. They also donated funds to Cherry River and Summersville Elementary, each receiving $1,173, for a grand total of $10,858. And all those were awarded based upon a grant application, and they'll be put to good use. Next was a small grant for ProStart, $225. Then we had a hospitality and tourism grant for $12,000, Career Center. And then finally, a JROTC supplement. We put $5,000 in their supply line, and the rest is supplemented to their salaries for a total of $9,797. Treasurer's report for the month of December. Start with general fund. Total budgeted revenues of $59,427,000. We've received, and that includes our reserves. Our actual revenue anticipated to be received is $38,451,000. We've received $18.6 million. We have $19.8 million to receive, so we're about 50% through our school year, our fiscal year, and we've received 48.45% of our budgeted revenue.
Is that about normal?
On the next page, you will see our capital projects fund. We carried forward a $157 million budget. We have received $5.8 million. We have $151 million of revenue or FEMA reimbursement to receive. Then at the bottom, you can see the balances that we have in each fund, and then to the right of that, you'll see how we have that invested.
You said last time you could get us the breakdown on FEMA.
When we get to the expense side, I'm going to tell you.
Okay. All right.
Believe it or not, today I got the W-9 for the Glade Creek site. So in January, it's all going to be on this report, but I'll manually tell you what the total is today. Revenues for the Special Revenue Fund, a budget of $9 million. We received $3.1 million. We have $5.8 million to receive, so we have received approximately in total 35.16%. And then the stimulus and stabilization funds, $13.9 million budget. We've received almost $1.4 million. We have a budget balance of $12.5 million received, so we've been reimbursed for approximately 10% of those expenditures. Flip the page and we're on the expense side. $59 million budget. We've spent $13.1 million. We have $17.6 million encumbered for payroll, which leaves $28 million for overhead and expenditures for the remainder of the school year. So we have committed 52% of our budget at this time. So on the next page, you'll see our capital grants project. And so again, $157 million budget. We've spent $2.9 million so far this year. On our system, we have $13.8 million encumbered, and on our system we're showing $140,537,981.21 available. However, we've had some change orders and this recent contract for the Cherry River School. So
Once we subtract those amounts out, the grand total of budget balance available is $95,841,421.71. So hopefully in your January treasurer's report, it'll reflect that.
It'll say what?
Hopefully on your January treasurer's report, it'll reflect that same number.
Oh, okay, gotcha. It better, I'll be watching. Just teasing.
I know. Then we have a special revenue on the expenditures. Again, $9 million budget, $3.7 million has been expended, $3.3 million encumbered for salaries, which leaves $1.9 million for overhead expenditures and/or supply expenditures outside of payroll. So overall, we've committed about 78% of that budget. And then the federal stimulus funds, $13.9 million budget. We've received almost $1.4 million. We have just over $1 million encumbered, which leaves $11,458,000 of budget available. And we have all of that money is budgeted for various projects that we'll be expending over the life of that budget or the next year and a half.
So it's there, but it's not there.
It's there and it's available. It's
Right.
available. We have not spent yet. And that concludes, there are some out-of-state travel or some travel requests at the bottom. If you want to read over those and if you have any questions.
And just so you know, that the Melanie's request, the Department of Ed did provide a grant that covers all of the expenses. That's not anything coming out of our budget.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to accept the consent items, finance 1, 2, 3, and the out-of-state and rental travel request 1, 2, 3, 4?
Make that motion.
Mr. Berry makes a motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Green. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. And that brings us to personnel. Ms. Sackett.
I'd like to have an executive session.
Okay, the superintendent would like to have an executive session. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Dr. Penix makes a motion to go into executive session. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Mr. Green. All in favor? Aye. Dr. Penix made a motion to come out of executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Berry. All in favor? Aye. At 8:47. There were no decisions made during the executive session.
All right, you have before you the updated personnel agenda. I put it in your board packets on Teams. So the changes are highlighted, they're in red and they're highlighted in yellow. Mr. Moose, it's in the board packet on Teams.
It's on Teams. She didn't do a printout.
Oh.
Just trying to save some paper.
You want to, you got this?
And an updated copy has been made available to the press, but I will read the changes out loud.
Let me close and restart it.
Are you connected to the internet?
Yes, it wasn't there. Sometimes this one you have to restart to get it
Okay.
to come up. Try it. Yes.
I've probably got I've got a copy right here if you want to look at it.
You can look at mine.
No, I got it right there.
Okay. Under professional, we removed 2 positions, the itinerant permanent substitute at the Learning Center and the Title I teacher at Zila. We may be reposting may have a recommendation for the Learning Center. I don't know, we've had a couple applicants. But as far as I know, we didn't receive any applicants for the ZELA position, so my guess is we'll be reposting that if the principal so desires. Under service, remove the position of custodian 3 at Nicholas County High School. I do anticipate that we will make a hire for that the next board meeting. Catherine Collins, employing the position of long-term substitute cook at Nicholas County High School, effective January 19th, 2023. Mary Tennell, employing the position of cook 1 at Nicholas County High School, effective January 19th, 2023. Daryl Spencer, employing the position of custodian 3 at Richwood High School, effective January 19th, 2023. On page 2, under consent, we added for the summer school program, transportation, 14 bus operators. I will say that we are not necessarily going to fill all of these positions. It will just depend on the enrollment. But we wanted to have permission to post for as many as we could potentially need. So when I do make the post, for instance, for the tutors of BRE, I'll say up to 6 tutors, and then we'll hire as many as necessary to service the kids that we have.
And that's all paid for by federal funds?
Correct, correct. And then on page 4, Rachel Taylor resigns her position as teacher at Cherry River Elementary School, effective February 1st, 2023. And then on page 3, you do have some leave requests, and also in the board packet, it's a separate document, is the vacancies. I've updated the vacancies as well, if you've got any questions about those.
What grade is Rachel? Rachel Taylor.
5th grade, I believe. Let me look at the,
She was the Save the Children in School.
oh, was she? Okay.
What?
Save the Children, she was a Save the Children.
Is that all you have?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a motion to accept the personnel agenda as presented?
So move.
Dr. Penix makes a motion,
Second.
second by Mr. Berry. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
No, I've got a huge. Is this mine?
Okay, superintendent's information, construction planning, architectural update.
I really don't have a lot to add. I'm going to give you our notes for each of you to review. Basically, you know, we have the Department of Highways. They provided a current schedule for work to begin May the 1st of 2023 out at the Glade Creek property, and it will take approximately 150 days to complete that work. Again, details are written.
Adding a third lane?
Yes, the turning lane into, yeah. Yep, just moving along, things are going well, except it's really wet, so they've had difficulties with that, but we're in pretty good shape.
Are they still going down the
Yeah,
road up?
yep,
They're about 10 days from completion on that. If they can get some dry weather, that's
Yep.
almost finished.
yep, they're just 10 days away from having that completed. So they're in good shape, and if any of you all would like to go out on the property, you know, they'll be happy to take you out in the vehicle and drive you around, let you see.
Go when it's dry.
Go when it's good.
So, let's put that out there again. So,
In the, I'm sorry, in the 31st, I forgot to mention that.
January 31st is going to be the
Pre-bid?
pre-bid, or pre-construction
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Meeting.
And then the contract for Richwood was not, we couldn't get it on this agenda. It'll be on next week's agenda on
24th.
Tuesday.
Yes.
Other than that, Richwood's ready to go. Cherry
Yep,
River.
so it's at 1:30 on the 31st at Richwood, at Cherry River Elementary. That's where that pre-construction meeting will occur.
And so,
Sorry.
as of now, March, we're supposed to get the plans back for Glade Creek, March.
Supposed to go out for advertisement on March the 15th. That's, hopefully, if nothing happens, it'll go out for 30 days. And then after that 30-day period, there will be a bid opening.
Okay.
Do what?
I thought it was too.
Well, the 60 days is what I thought was going to be, maybe so, but I thought they were going to ask them to hold the bid for 60 days. They're going to ask them, because right now, like the Richwood bid was a hold for 30 days, but they're going to ask them to hold the bid for 60 days.
Oh, yeah.
Not 60 days to do the bid, but just hold it for 60.
30 days for the bid and then 60
Yeah.
days to hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was confused on that.
Okay, thank you. Number 9, reports. SES.
1:30, I'm sorry, 1:30 Cherry River,
31st.
31st, yes, sir. So reports, Dr. Penix, SESC.
We don't meet until tomorrow, so I'll have a report at the next regular monthly meeting. So
Thank you, sir. Bright Horizons, Mr. Green.
Have a meeting on Thursday.
Okay, nice.
Mr. Chip,
Yes, sir.
I have a meeting coming up with the West Virginia.
farm,
Well, it's not,
It's
it's Farm
4-H.
Bureau's part of it. It's
extension agency.
extension, yeah. And they're gonna talk about the budget. I'm assuming they'll ask for, at least for what they got the last time. And I don't know, I'm just putting it out there so you can give me some opinions, or if you'd like to, you know, agree or disagree with what they want, yeah.
Our annual contribution to them is
One.
20,000?
20, I think.
To the extension agency?
I think it's the same that's for each of the libraries.
Yeah, I think
Is it
so,
in the levy?
It's in the levy
Yes,
call.
yes.
yeah. But I
So if it's in the levy call,
Yeah.
it's,
Right,
it'll
we'll
be
hold to that. yeah.
right.
And a lot of times they like to ask for more. Just-
If it's in the levy call, we'll give that to them.
Yeah, well, it's in the extension service, what it is. It covers a lot of different
I know.
things. 4-H, farm to,
Okay, do we have any delegations?
No, sir.
Thank you. Items for future agendas. I meant to ask you this, or mention this earlier, but surplus property. Is Mr. Hess working on that?
Yes.
As far
We
as-
don't have a date yet. He hasn't said.
Well, I'm talking about our pieces of land.
Oh,
Where we at on that?
yes, we actually have planned to do that. We planned to do that around May when the weather got better. But we can actually have it maybe earlier. But that's what we were looking at, more of the summertime.
So for those of y'all who don't know what we're talking about, the board owns several pieces of property around the county. Some of them are just a lot or an acre here or there. And so it's my feeling that to get rid of the liability on those pieces of property, we need to, there's no reason for us to hold on to those, and so we could sell them.
And it could help contribute to our new construction, so, I mean, I could always ask if the board doesn't think it'll hinder the sale by doing it, in, the winter months, or, we could even do it earlier.
I assume somebody close by and adjoining would buy it, and they'd know what it
It'd
is.
be auctioned, it'll be up for auction, so one of the things that I talked to our president about was having a big public auction for all of our excess properties and listed at that time so that we would have a bigger bidder pool to come in, and I'm not sure how long it will take to pull all of that together, but, I can look at it, see if it is possible to get it sooner.
But we also, we're not talking about like the Falta shelter because
No,
it's
no,
being
no.
used.
No.
We're not talking about the old Glade Creek Canvas grade school site because it's being used by several different people.
Did
Just
we
vacant
sell-
land.
Did we sell that land that the brick house was on between,
Yes.
there was a couple acres, 5?
Sold that a long time,
We
sold that a long
that.
time ago, right?
Several years ago.
Yeah, that's what.
But I assume that we would set a minimum price on bids. I mean, because people might come in and say, I'll give you $10 for it, and they win it, you know, the bid, so we have to.
Those are the types of things that, looking at appraisals on the properties, you know, some's very small lots, some larger. Those are the types of things. I mean, we can even have a work session to let you all have an opportunity to look at everything that we have.
Some of them might be an acre in the middle of a
Yeah.
farm somewhere.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think there is a situation like that, for sure,
So, but there's no reason for us to hold on to those.
especially when we're going to need the money.
Plus, we can get the taxes off of them.
That's right, that's right. And never win.
Okay, future meeting dates. Special meeting Tuesday, January 24th here at the board office. And that starting time is at 6 o'clock. The next regular scheduled meeting will be Monday, February 6th here at the board office at 6 o'clock. We have an LSIC meeting February 13th at Zila at 5 o'clock. And our second regular meeting in February is February 20th at 6 o'clock here at the board office. Anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make that motion.
Mr. Berry makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Green makes a second. All in favor? Aye. At 9 o'clock.
Amen.